Jake didn't belong at that party. He knew it the second he stepped into the grand foyer, where the air was heavy with cologne, low jazz, and that kind of money that didn't need to flaunt itself, just rested on every surface like invisible dust. His best friend Tyler had grown up in that house. 3 stories of marble, mahogany, and manicured perfection. Jake had grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment over a pizza place. But Tyler always said, just show up. And Jake always did. That night he showed up in a denim jacket with a tear in the sleeve and Converse that hadn't been white in years. No one cared except maybe her. She was near the back patio where the warm April breeze curled into the room like a lazy cat. She stood by the drink table turning a glass of white wine in her hand like she was bored of it. Bored of the party, the people, the predictability. Her dress was black, long, with a slit that reached just enough to be noticed and not enough to be called an invitation. Vanessa, that was her name. He wouldn't know it until later. But in that moment, all he knew was that she was too poised to be young, too sharp to be tame, and way too beautiful to be alone. Jake thought about walking past her. He almost did. But she looked up just once and that glance had gravity. You're either lost or deeply regretting your life choices, she said, her voice a slow drawl of sarcasm and whine. Jake blinked. What gave it away? Vanessa smirked. You look like a stray someone let in by accident. That should have been his cue to leave. But Jake laughed. That's fair, he said, scratching the back of his neck. I'm Jake. Tyler's friend. Of course you are, she replied. I'm Vanessa. I used to be married to that guy talking about crypto over there. Jake followed her gaze. A stocky man in salmon pants was ranting about decentralization. My condolences. Vanessa raised her glass. Accepted. There was no flirtation in her tone. Just amusement. A kind of weary, razor-sharp amusement that made Jake both cautious and curious. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't trying at all. They ended up on the back patio where the noise of the party became a distant hum, and the world shrank to 2 chairs, a bottle of wine, and a conversation that started with jokes and ended somewhere near honesty. Vanessa talked like she'd seen too much and cared too little. Jake listened like he was learning a language no one had ever spoken to him before. She had just finalized her divorce 2 weeks ago. 13 years, no kids, just property and silence and scars you couldn't Instagram. He didn't ask why it ended. She didn't offer. But he could tell she wasn't broken, just burnt. Crisp around the edges, glowing at the core. You're what, 25? She asked after a while. 26, Jake corrected. Vanessa snorted. Cute. And you? He asked, knowing it was both brave and stupid. 39. Yeah, I know, practically ancient. You don't look. Jake liked her. He didn't mean to. She wasn't asking to be liked. She wasn't the type you saved or fixed. She wasn't in need of rescue. She was the one who'd been on the boat when it sank and swam to shore alone, then laughed about it. Jake didn't fall in love that night. Not exactly. But the first seed was planted. And seeds, even the reluctant ones, grow. They didn't exchange numbers that night. Jake walked away with nothing but the memory of her laugh, low, knowing, like someone who'd read the last page of the book and still chose to keep reading. But a week later she found him. It wasn't magic. Just Instagram. Tyler had tagged him in a photo from the party. Blurry, unflattering, red cup in hand. Vanessa sent a DM. You still look like a stray. But one that might bite coffee. He stared at the message longer than he should have. Then typed, deleted, typed again. Only if you promise not to declaw me. Tomorrow 11 Café Grano. Jake showed up 10 minutes early. She was already there, sitting outside with sunglasses and a book she clearly wasn't reading. No makeup. You're late, she said without looking up. He checked his watch. I'm literally 10 minutes early. Vanessa closed the book. Exactly. Don't be so eager next time. You'll scare people. He sat grinning. Is this a date? They collided again. Once over sushi, then late at a bookstore that stayed open past midnight. Eventually at her apartment. Minimalist, quiet, full of shadows and soft music. She had a record player, of course. And wine that didn't have a screw top. He kissed her there. Not because it was planned. Because she'd said something quietly devastating about the people who disappoint you in silence. How it's worse than betrayal. And he didn't have words, so he used his mouth a different way. Jake was chaos, sneakers, ramen nights and bills paid late. Vanessa was control, black coffee, Pilates at 6 and knives that never dulled. but somehow their friction made warmth. She never tried to hide the gap. 13 years different lives. He kissed the inside of her wrist. Sunrise people don't look at the clock. But clocks were real. Time passed and the world outside didn't care how they fit. Tyler found out first. Wait, you're seeing Vanessa? As in my sister's ex-husband's ex-wife Vanessa? Tyler whistled. Man. That's like radioactive. She eats guys like you for breakfast. Jake smiled. I'm fine being serial. But cracks showed not between them, around them. Her friends were polite, coolly detached. Jake was tolerated, not welcomed. At dinners, people asked him what he did but didn't wait for the answer. At her gallery events, he stood like a misplaced coat, smiling too much, sipping drinks he couldn't pronounce. Vanessa noticed. She always noticed. You don't have to come to these, she said once, slipping off her heels after a benefit. You look like you're bracing for an earthquake. I like seeing you work the room. She looked at him. I'm not trying to impress you. I know that's what impresses me. They lasted 3 months, then 10. And one night on her balcony watching the city hum below, Jake asked the question he shouldn't have. Do you think this ends well? Vanessa was quiet. He looked at her. Then what is? She turned to him. The point is to have something beautiful before it breaks. He wanted to argue, but she kissed him, slow and final. And just like that, he knew. Some people are chapters. Others margins. Vanessa was a whole book he was never meant to finish. But he'd read her anyway. 3 years passed before he saw her again. Not because of drama or betrayal. Just time, that quiet thief that never kicks in the door, only leaves windows cracked and pages missing. Jake had moved on, or said he had. He dated women closer to his age, with Spotify playlists that overlapped with his and dreams that hadn't yet hardened into architecture. He found comfort in the expected, in relationships that didn't feel like walking a tightrope blindfolded. But none of them made him feel like Vanessa did, like gravity had shifted just enough to make standing still feel like flight. He sometimes caught her ghost in the corners of rooms, the smell of sandalwood, the glint of a smirk he hadn't seen in years. And then one Thursday evening, while picking up wine for a friend's engagement party, he looked up and she was there. Same walk, same eyes, a little more winter in her hair, but still magnetic in that quiet, devastating way that made you want to confess things you hadn't even admitted to yourself. He saw him too. No dramatic music. No slow motion. Just a small, knowing smile that said, of course. They walked to a quiet bar nearby. Her mother had passed. She'd moved to a smaller place, started mentoring young artists. Jake had published a few essays that got shared around. He had a dog now named August. She laughed at that. Of course you do. And somewhere between the second and third drink, silence came. Not awkward, not loaded, just there, like a space neither of them wanted to fill. She looked at him the same way she did the night on the balcony and said, You still ask questions you already know the answers to? He smiled. Only the ones that still matter. He didn't ask if she missed him. Didn't ask if she regretted leaving. The answers were there, in the way she touched his hand without thinking, the way her voice lowered on his name. But when she left that night, she kissed him on the cheek, not the lips. You're still Sunrise. Don't let anyone rush that. And she walked into the night like she always had, without apology, without explanation. Jake stood there for a long time after, holding nothing but a wine bottle and a memory that no longer hurt. He didn't chase her. Didn't need to. Some people you only meet once in a lifetime, but they stay, like a scar or a favorite song, or a door in your heart that never fully closes. She had been the storm and the shelter. And now she was the silence that made him stronger.